Hello everyone, welcome back to Believer Science Academy. This is daily news analysis session. In this, we'll be discussing important articles from the Hindu, Indian Express and Press Information Bureau from UPSC prelims, mains and interview perspective. The first article for 17th July 2025 is from the front page of the Hindu. It talks about share of clean energy in electricity still below 30%. It talks about the status of clean energy in India. It talks about the paradox between installed capacity and the actual supply. The context is India has achieved a major milestone by reaching 50% installed capacity from non-fossil fuel sources, 5 years ahead of its nationally determined contributions under Paris Climate Agreement. Okay. However, the actual share of clean energy in the electricity generated and supplied remains below 30%, raising concerns over efficiency and integration. Though the installed capacity has reached 50%, the supply is still at 30%. So there is a lag of 20% between installed capacity and its supply. We will see some data. Data is installed capacity and the actual generation. Share in installed capacity, that is renewable energy plus nuclear plus hydro, was 30% in 2014 and now it is 50%, and share in actual generation is only 17% compared to present 28%. Okay, though the installed capacity has increased, the share in generation is very less. Installed capacity is at 484 gigawatt total, and the clean energy share is solar, wind, biomass, hydro, small and large and small, and nuclear. These are the important contributor to clean energy in India. Why there is a gap? Why there is a gap between installed capacity and supply? First is low capacity utilization factor, that is CUF. That is the percent of installed capacity actually generating is very less. In solar CUF is only 20%, and wind CUF it is 25 to 30%. In coal it is 60%, and in nuclear it is 80%. And it means despite the high capacity, the actual output from the renewable energy is very limited. Second, coal as a base load source. Coal still meets 75% of India's electricity needs. It is very critical for round the clock power availability in India, and solar power drops after sunset, increasing coal dependence in evenings. Obviously, the solar power is dependent on the weather, is dependent on the seasons, and is also dependent on the sunrise and sunset. As a result, it is not generating throughout the day, throughout the month, or throughout the year. So back to basics again, that is back to coal dependence again. So what are the challenges to integration? Why we are not able to bridge the gap? One is the lack of flexible grids, absence of large scale battery storage, flat electricity pricing, that is same tariff day and night, inadequate smart grid infrastructure, and seasonal and diurnal variability in renewables, especially solar and wind. Because of these, we are not able to integrate in the supply chain. So how do you address this issue? In the article, they have provided certain suggestions. That is, go for smart grids and differential tariffs. That is, introduce time of the day pricing, cheaper power during the daytime to promote solar use, and requires robust grid automation and digital metering. If you are providing cheaper power sources during the day, and if you make it costlier during the night, people are obviously going to the cheaper source, which according to you is the solar power. Then, with respect to battery storage system, store excess solar or wind energy during the day and release during the peak demand, that is evenings and the nights. Then go for hybrid energy models, combining solar, wind, hydro plus storage for stable power supply. Encourage in recent policy pushes for round the clock renewable projects, which is not in silos but in connection with each other renewable energy sources. Then, so the significance is it is going to lead clean energy leadership. India is progressing in its climate change goals, which will set it as a leader in global climate change action. But to move from capacity addition to the real decarbonization, the focus must shift to efficient utilization, technology integration, and demand supply management. Finally, it lays foundation for energy transition, but the real impact will depend on policy innovation, infrastructure, and behavioral economics. A very important article from the Hindu, so I covered it in a holistic way. And second, it is from the Hindu science section. It talks about CERN collider or CERN collider reveals major clue to universe's bias against antimatter. So the context is, for the first time, physicists at the CERN's LHCb Large Hadron Collider experiment have observed CP violation in baryons, which is a significant step in understanding why universe is dominated by matter, even though matter and antimatter were created in equal amounts during the Big Bang. A very scientific in nature, we'll try to decode it and understand it. So matter, that is what we see, what we are able to feel is matter, and what we can't see and what we are not able to feel is the antimatter. And we'll understand what is the CP violations. So what is this CP violation? CP is the C is the charge conjugation. It swaps a particle with antiparticle, and P is parity, that is it mirrors reflection of spatial coordinates. CP symmetries states that matter and antimatter should behave identically under these operations. Okay, so though they are opposite in nature, because of C, that is charge conjugation, where it swaps a particle of matter with antimatter, and P, which mirrors the reflection of spatial coordinates, they are in symmetry all the time and they behave identical under these operations, that is under CP operations. So when does CP violation occurs? CP violation occurs when this symmetry is broken, indicating that the laws of physics differ for matter and antimatter. This is what they have observed here. CP violation has occurred. As a result, it is shown that the universe is favoring matter over antimatter. Why does it matter? Okay, so lots of matter here. Just understand the basic core point here. CP violation is a key requirement to explain matter antimatter symmetry in the universe, as per Sakharov conditions of 1967. Earlier observations that limited to mesons. What are mesons? Mesons are particles made up of quark and antiquark. The new finding is first ever observation of CP violation in baryons. The baryons is a 3 quark particles like protons and neutrons. Quarks are the fundamental particles, and these quarks together form baryons. They are also similar to protons and neutrons. The experiment happened at Large Hadron Collider, which is present at CERN. The particle studied was B raised to 0, that is lambda B0 baryon, made of up, down, and bottom quarks. These are very technical in nature, but in physics there are fundamental particles, meaning these are the smallest particles of which all the matter is made in the world. Of these, there are 3 fundamental quarks. One is up, down, bottom, and the other is electron, muon, and one more is baryon, I guess. I am not able to recall it. So the decay channel observed that B raised to 0 is equal to proton plus kaon plus pion minus. Not necessary. And B bar is equal to antiproton, kaon plus kaon. That is all the charges of here in B raised to 0, which is a proton, The Cohen was in negative, here Cohen is in positive, and P1 is a positive, negative, negative, positive. When there is a proton and antiproton, the proton, if it is matter, antiproton is antimatter. So when there is decay channels observed, all the charges were reversed. So that is what antimatter and matters are in reality. Everything is reversed there. So key measurements were a CP asymmetry is not equals to 0, which means that there has been a confirmed CP violation. That is, charge and subjugation has been violated. Asymmetry was observed at 2.45%. Not necessary to remember all these things. So significance level is 5.2, which is the standard deviation, and it qualifies as a discovery in the particle physics. That is why it is very significant, especially in the particle physics. So what is the statistical and methodological rigor here? How did they find about it? One is control decay channel. It is used to eliminate background effects mimicking the CP violation. And machine learning, it was used to distinguish real signals from the noise. And detecting bias correction, that is, it is adjusted for asymmetries in particle detection. As a result, these are some of the methodologies, not as a result, these are the methodologies which were used. As a result, we were able to observe CP violation and we were able to distinguish them from noise to the actual signal. So now this discovery puts the standard model beyond. What is the standard model? Standard model predicts CP violation via CK matrix. What is CK matrix? It is quark mixing model. So the problem here is the amount of CP violation predicted by SM is not enough to explain the observed matter dominance. In the universe, though there are matter and antimatter created in a equal amount, matter and antimatter were created in equal amount during the Big Bang, but over the period of time we were able to observe more matter in comparison to antimatter. Now the scientists said that it is so because of the CP violation which was observed during the Hadron Collider. This happens naturally. As a result, there is more matter produced and less antimatter reproduced. However, one of the counter argument is, though there is CP violation, though there is bias towards matter, but it doesn't explain the significant discrepancy between the matter and antimatter. It is not just like this now. It is so much in favor of matter. That doesn't explain why matter is so much in compared to antimatter. Then measuring the complex phase in baryon CP violation is crucial, but yet to be extracted due to technical challenges. Recently, a 2022 method proposed by Indian physicists, that is Sinha, Roy, Deshapande, offers a possible approach. We will understand what this is in some other class. So for now, it is not very important. So this is important. What are the implications of this discovery of CP violation? Implications for the fundamental physics. It meets one of the three Sakharov conditions. One is baryon number violation and CP violation in baryons, which has been observed now, and departure from the thermal equilibrium. And this discovery strengthens the effort to explain matter antimatter asymmetry, though not sufficient by itself. According to Sakharov, who is a Russian scientist, he said that the asymmetry between matter and antimatter is mainly because of these three things: baryon number violation, CP violation in baryons, and departure from thermal equilibrium. However, we have been able to observe only this one at the moment, so we do not have the technical capabilities at present with us to observe these two. So what is next? One is in terms of experimental, in terms of theoretical. So in terms of experimental, we need more precise measurements across baryon families and other systems. Theoretical, develop a redefined model, a refined model to explain observations beyond the standard model. So if future observations match SM predictions, suggest that SM is incomplete for explaining the matter asymmetry. If they deviate from the SM predictions that observed at the like Large Hadron Collider at the moment, then there is a possible evidence of altogether a new physics apart from the particle physics, new physics apart from the fundamental physics, new physics even apart from the quantum physics, which is going to be a larger discovery, a greatest discovery you can say. So this is a very technical in nature, but just remember what is this hadron collider, etc., etc. Then there was a very interesting article in the Hindu which talked about a tectonic shift in thinking to build seismic resilience. Seismic resilience. So it comes in disaster management. The article discusses India's seismic risk, that is need for urgent resilience and structural reforms. The context here is the 4.4 magnitude tremor in Delhi on July 10, 2025, though minor, is a stark reminder of India's deep seismic vulnerability. Over 80% of Delhi's infrastructure remains non-compliant with the seismic safety norms, especially building constructed before 2000. So we run a risk of disaster in Delhi. So India's tectonic setting. Where is India located? India lies on the colliding Indian Eurasian plate boundary, which is moving at a rate of 3 to 5 centimeter per year. We must know that India was part of southern hemisphere before. If this was Laurasia and this was Gondwana land, so India is part of Gondwana land, and it started shifting towards the north over billion years, not billion years ago, about 120 million years ago. It started shifting away and it reached 0 degree equator, and when it resulted in the formation of evergreen forest, and then it started moving away. And if this is like Eurasia, it pushed to the Eurasia. As a result, it created the formation of Himalayas, and then it from here it started a movement of door locking movement, and it clapped like this. As a result, it created the formation of larger Himalayas in India. Tibet, Bhutan, etc., etc. And the water got submerged here. As a result, you see Gondwana coals, okay, Gondwana coals, which are very rich in coal. So they are found here in India. So they say that it is present in Eurasia. This is the Eurasian plate and this is the Indian plate, and it is moving towards at the pace of 4 to 5 centimeter per year. Okay, so that is what they are trying to explain here. Now, the motion is responsible for the formation of Himalayas, the world's most seismically active or volatile region. The region is overdue for a great Himalayan earthquake of above 8 magnitude, threatening 300 million people across India, Nepal, and Bhutan. So India is moving against Eurasian plate. As a result, it is creating the fold mountains, that is the Great Himalayas. Now, whenever there is a shift in the movement, whenever there is a sudden adjustment, it is going to result in the formation of earthquakes. It is going to cause like release of earthquake waves or seismic waves, which is going to be a very catastrophic. So it may not happen in the near term, but there are possibilities, that there are very high possibilities that India might witness an earthquake of 8 magnitude. Now, how do you define or divide vulnerable zones in India? Zone 1 is 5. First zone is 5, which means very high risk level is there. Examples of the areas: northeastern states, Andaman Nicobar, Bhuj area, which the peak ground acceleration is 0.36 gram. So 0.36 gravity. And 4 is high. Areas of Delhi, parts of North India, which accelerates at a 0.24 g. And 2 to 3 moderate, and rest of peninsular India, which accelerates less than 0.16 g. Peninsular India, that is the Deccan Peninsula, is one of the most stable regions of India because it has been consolidated even before it attached to northern India, or even before it attached to the Eurasian plate. Then Delhi has a seismic zone 4 with the liquefaction prone soils and 5000 plus high rises, many floating IS not necessary, meaning earthquake resistant design. Northeast, it observes frequent tremors due to proximity to Myanmar fault zones, and Kutch, Gujarat, still vulnerable post Bhuj earthquakes. So one of the most grave earthquake in India was the Bhuj earthquake of 2001. Bhuj lies in Gujarat. So if this is Eurasia, India, as I said, if this was India, India went through door locking system and it like got collided into the northern hemisphere or Eurasia. As a result, it created a like fault zone. That fault zone is Bhuj fault zone. So Bhuj laid on this fault zone, which is present in Gujarat. As a result, it resulted in one of the worst earthquakes in Indian history. Then, what are the challenges in disaster management of earthquakes? First is urbanization without seismic planning. That is, there is rapid, unregulated constructions in high risk zones, poor adherence to seismic codes, especially in the older buildings, and inadequate enforcement and awareness. IS 1893-2016 standards are often ignored, which are the very basic codes to be observed for construction of buildings in seismically active zones. National Center for Seismology has early warning apps like India Quake, but very less people know about this one. Even I didn't know about this before doing this article. So there is India Quake, which is an early warning app, which is devised by National Center for Seismology. And next, global context has been ignored here. A global surge in seismic activity, majorly in Myanmar, Tibet, Greece, and Indonesia, warns of an increased tectonic unrest. India might be next. India's response remains reactive rather preemptive. So, what should be the solutions? The author gives a very beautiful solutions here. First is to bring structural measures, that is retrofitting with steel jacketing, especially for older buildings in Delhi, deep pile foundations in soft and soil areas, base isolation systems for critical infrastructure such as hospitals, bridges, avoiding construction on floodplains and soft basins. These can be followed in high seismic zones from now on. And institutional policy reforms such as strict enforcement of IS codes by local bodies like Delhi Development Authority. Annual investment of rupees 50,000 crore is recommended for national retrofitting. Expanding early warning systems to rural and high risk areas, especially in northeastern India. Also, take inspiration from the global best practices, such as Bangkok, which has seismic codes updated in 2007, use of high strength concrete, which is about 30 to 40 MPa. And Myanmar has high casualty toll in 2025 due to non-enforcement of seismic regulations. So we can see both Bangkok in Thailand and Myanmar, both neighboring countries in Southeast Asian region belonging to Myanmar seismic zone. They are highly prone to earthquakes. However, Bangkok was able to avoid fatalities. However, Myanmar is not able to because of the lack of adherence to seismic regulations in Myanmar, whereas they adhere to seismic codes in Bangkok. Then, Sakharov-like ethical imperative. Just like Sakharov formed principles for understanding the cosmos, author urges India to treat seismic preparedness as a technical and moral duty, especially after tragedies like Bhuj and Nepal in 2025. So we learnt about Sakharov in the previous article as well, and he is here again. So what you can do is just go to ChatGPT or Google and search about who this Sakharov was, what are these principles, how you can apply his principles in UPSC. Then, so conclusion, the author says that July 2025 Delhi tremor is not just a seismic event but a civilizational alert. It is a warning. It exposes the fragility of India's urban ecosystems and calls for a tectonic shift in policy, engineering, and public awareness. Without immediate actions, millions of lives and livelihoods are at risk. The window for preparedness is closing fast, so time is to take actions. Okay, a very beautiful article. Then moving on to the prelims pointers, and the first article is from the front page again. PM Jan Dhan Krishi Yojana, a comprehensive agriculture reform. Why is it in context? The context is the Union Cabinet has approved the Prime Minister Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana as announced in the 25-26 Union Budget to enhance agricultural productivity and promote sustainable practices. This marks a significant shift towards integrated farm sector planning. So, what are the key features of this PM Krishi Dhanadhanya Yojana? It is a convergence of schemes, that is, it merges 36 schemes across 11 sectors or 11 ministries or departments. Annual outlay is 24,000 crore for 6 years, expected to benefit 1.7 crore farmers throughout India. Objective is to boost productivity along with sustainable farming, enhancing irrigation, post-harvest infrastructure and credit access, promote crop diversification, organic or natural farming and resource conservation, and also planning and implementation is done by committees at district, state and national levels. So it is a decentralized implementation, and each district will prepare a district agricultural and allied activities plan. Inclusion of progressive farmers in planning bodies. This is a very important aspect of Dhanadhanya Krishi Yojana. The planning is coming from bottom top rather than top down approach. They have already used the top down approach and it hasn't been very successful. As a result, now they are going to bottom up approach, because the locals or the people belonging to a particular district know their social acceptability, technological adaptability and also economic capability of the farms. According to their all these capabilities, adaptability, they can devise a plan. Target districts, 100 districts to be selected initially using indicators. The indicators are a district with low productivity, low cropping intensity, low credit disbursement will be chosen as the initial districts. At least one district from every state or union territory. Allocation is based on net cropped area and operational holdings. And the second article from the film's perspective is about Kluchevskoye volcano and Kamchatka Peninsula. So it is an active stratovolcano which is present in Kamchatka Peninsula of eastern Russia. So it was in news because recently it has erupted, and there is a picture captured through the satellite which showed that this volcano is developing devil's horns, like this. Devil's horns. As a result, there was an article covered in the Nature Journal which I have covered here. So Kluchevskoye volcano is 4,750 meters high and it is the tallest volcano in Eurasia. It is a truncated cone with a central crater and around 70 lateral craters and cones in the lower slope. Eruption history: it has erupted 50 plus times since 1700 and it is known for continuous smoke emissions and monitored by Kamchatka Volcanic Logical Station at its base. And the recent activity, a 2023 satellite image captured large lava flows and vast plume of smoke which is signaling a renewed volcanic activity. And about Kamchatka Peninsula, it is present in far eastern Russia. It borders Sea of Okhotsk and Pacific Ocean and Bering Sea to the east. Mountain ranges are Srediny mountain range in the center, Ostochny range in the eastern, and climate is severe, that is cold snowy winters, wet cool summers. And tectonic setting, it is part of Kuril-Kamchatka Island arc. It hosts 68 active volcanoes and over 10% of all the terrestrial active volcanoes globally. So it is located within the Pacific Ring of Fire, and this Kuril Islands was the point of contention between two important nations. I want you to write what are those nations, between which nations was a dispute about Kuril Islands in your comment box. Okay, so these are the articles which I want to discuss today. I have covered important and various articles from the science, physics, etc. etc. So if you like the video, then please hit the like button, comment on it, and also share with your friends. With this, I will end the video. Jai Hind.